Thanks very much for coming, everybody. This is the first lecture of a series. We called it the Lecture Palooza because there's so many. We have some really amazing lecturers that are taking part in this. You can see all of them there in that picture. And it really is going to be a great couple of weeks to be learning things in dentistry because I don't know about you, but a lot of those people and a lot of those faces I look up to and learn a lot from myself. So I can't wait to listen to the lectures myself. The main reason why we're here is we started this initiative to help out with the 3D printing of parts going back a couple of weeks ago now. The very start when there was the call to produce parts. So we set up the group and we are in the process of, I'm happy to say, setting up as a full charity. So it'll be completely independent with its own trustees and board and everything like that. And eventually when that goes through, which Quintus knows because he does one of the charities Love by Giving, it takes a long time. But we started the road and we can at least get going with that because the important thing is we do need the funds. It's not for us. Not a penny will go to us. It'll go to the production, organization of parts, delivery of parts, the cost of producing them with the resins and materials, and going around. And so far we've produced, how many have we produced, lads, now? It's got to be over 1,000, I think.
Oh, yeah, plenty now.
Through some amazing help throughout the country with lab technicians and dentists. Someone's just said no clear voice. Can you hear me okay?
Should we do a little sound test? So, Adam, I could hear you quite nicely there.
Yeah. It perhaps could be internet settings. I don't know. Maybe some of you, if you're in different parts of the world, it'll need a good fast internet. So if you're, we'll come to how you can rewatch it in a minute.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say was some of the parts that we're producing. We've been mostly producing visors so far through all the production labs that have been making stuff around the country and sending off to the frontline staff. Visors seem to be the thing that they're short of the most. We heard today we had a request for 1,000 from one hospital. So the problem is really, I don't think the frontline staff have everything that they're in the news say that they have. So the real thing is just getting all of this produced. We had a bit of a breakthrough a few days ago with speaking to a couple of people, including a guy called Connor Bryant. If you don't know who he is, then Connor runs Bryant Dental, Bryant Loops. He has a lot of production capability, more than naturally I think anybody I know in the UK that can produce thousands of parts per day. So we can produce visors. We're working on trying to streamline which mask to go for. Loads of people have made masks, including myself, and I think the thing is, to find out which one is best and fit for purpose. So then we'll be producing PP3 masks. But one of the best things that we've been doing is these that somebody in Italy came up with. I've tinkered with the thing to be able to print a little bit better, but it's, I'll try and show it there. These parts are really, really simple, but it's part of a chain of parts that connect to a scuba mask. And, with the
Venturi valve.
Yeah, the Venturi valve. And with a PEEP valve, you can basically set up a full CPAP ventilator system. All of those, that whole kit, costs about £50 per kit. We've bought so far out of our own pockets 100. So we've made a fair old whacking investment already. Obviously, we don't have unlimited funds, and there's also the cost of masks. Masks and visors probably cost between £4 and £5 for a visor with a set of 10 shields. So with all of that. The production, there's obviously cost, and the more this is ramping up, we needed to do the charity drive try and bring in funds to be able to pay for that, so we can order it in bigger bulk and get big scale production going on to send to hospitals. The nice thing is this has evolved as well. Places like the Bryant's lab, their production capability is producing things with CE-marked medical grade material as well. So the beautiful thing is that now we can produce things that we can use on the front line safely. And so we know what we can produce, we know what materials we can produce it in, and we know how much it's going to cost. So Celeste Barker is our secretary for the IDDA, and she's done a phenomenal job of organizing things for us over the last few weeks, for us when we were going to be doing the opening, but also this, and really, couldn't have done it without us. So a big thanks to Celeste. She is basically coordinating between people's requests and people's production as it goes out there, and then it gets sent off. So every now and again, you might see a post, someone will post something, and one of us will go put the request into the website. So the three things I want to say are to make sure, number one, if you need parts, then you go to 3D print COVID-19 and put in that request. If you scroll down, there's a little drop-down menu, you can put that in. Second thing, if you want to help, we're starting to expand now. We're speaking to one of the lecturers, actually, a chap called Ray Rofi. Ray is going to be helping as well, organizing things in the US. And all of the different IDDA embassies are going to be hopefully helping out as well to coordinate in different countries. The problem is, I think that the reality is that we've only just started to see the beginning of this in hospitals and in everywhere. So, the chaps in Italy have really seen how hard this is going to get, and we're all going to get there in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and they're already short of parts. So we really need a big push now to produce this while they don't have it, so that they don't get sick and it constrains the system even more. So the third thing, the really important thing, and I don't want to beg, but with all of these lectures, we're doing it for free. All of these guys that you can see here on the screen have all very kindly given up their time, again, volunteered for free to do this for you. If you value the lecture and if you really like listening to all these, then please donate to the charity drive we're doing, and hopefully we can produce more parts. So the more we get, the more we can produce, the more we can send out. And that's it, really, basically. The last thing to say to you, we also discount IDDA.org while this is going on. Obviously, nobody has the funds they want to be spending on stuff, let alone donating. So we really appreciate anything. So if you're going to join IDDA, we'd rather knock it down half price for now, so that you can spend the rest on donating if you want to, which we'd prefer. So if you type in the code COVID-19 on IDDA.org when you join, then you'll get that half price too, and you'll be able to watch all of these lectures again. So it all works out for the best. For the very best thing is to help frontline staff, not just in the UK, but everywhere. And we're all clubbing together. So last thing I want to say is a big thank you to everybody who contributed so far. And should we move on? I'm going to leave you with Chris.
Yeah, apologies. I just got kicked off there for a minute. I'll switch off my camera so that we can all have a better view of the screen here. So let's have a look.
Yeah, Chris, I think if we all switch off our cameras, it will be a lot smoother.
Yeah. I think this takes up less bandwidth. So welcome, everybody.
Okay, great.
Really, the purpose of today is to introduce you all to digital dentistry, give you a very brief overview. That's all we can do in about 30 minutes, but to introduce you into what possibilities digital workflows can bring in for us, and just really an introduction how this is really going to change the future of dentistry, or currently is changing dentistry as we stand, and really how we all need to start to consider adopting digital workflows to make work more predictable for us. Okay, so when we look at the where we've come from and where we are heading, it's really about considering evolution. Are we all seeing the same slide, by the way? Let's have a look. Okay, guys, my apologies. I'm just working on that. Right. Sorry. So can everyone see the slide there? Can somebody just confirm that we're on slide 3 there?
Yep.
We are. Okay. So I had the great privilege of a couple of years ago, actually, visiting my home country, Greece. And I ended up in Crete and had the privilege of visiting the Palace of Knossos, which archaeologically is the very first well-known literate civilization in Europe, around the Bronze Age, 1500 years before Christ. And what really impressed me is that even at that stage, evolution doesn't stand still. You could see people utilizing the best of what they had to make the most of what they could. And the day we were standing at the palace ruins here must have been close to 40 degrees Celsius. But when you get down to the deeper portions of the chambers and the storage areas, there was probably around 6-7 degrees in the depths of the palace, which in reality is a fridge, in the middle of a 40-degree sun, without any electricity, without any power. There were open source toilets as well. So it was very interesting to see how evolution of people progresses and how people always try to do better for themselves. But the great thing through time is that it's been marked by major milestones, and the major milestones are really the industrial revolutions. So when we see the first industrial revolution, which was the steam age, that really revolutionized the way people lived and worked. And the steam age actually brought in mechanized evolution and brought a complete change to mankind. The second industrial revolution was really when electricity and the telephone were invented, as well as the spontaneous combustion engine, and again was a major milestone in the way the world evolved and the way people engaged with existing. The third industrial revolution was around the turn of the century in the 40s. We could see there where we could see the after the Second World War, the computer age, and how suddenly computers were starting to control everything we're doing, and everyone had to adapt to that to make every workforce more efficient. But the biggest change we're seeing now, and what we find ourselves in, is really the fourth industrial revolution, which has been well described by Professor Klaus Schwab in 2016. He's the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum in Geneva. And what we find ourselves in within the fourth industrial revolution is an era which is marked by emerging technologies such as robotics, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and 3D printing, autonomous vehicles. My little girl's 11 years old now, and it's a very real possibility that in the next 5-6 years, she may not even need to learn how to drive because of automated vehicles. Ford has already got that going up in the big cities. Out in the United States, they're already testing that. So they reckon by 2021-22, they'll have a fully autonomous vehicle. So we have to adapt to this because new generations that come through are also going to expect different things from us as clinicians. They want to engage with everything that we're doing. 3D printing, for example, becoming mainstream dentistry, but not just mainstream dentistry, it's becoming mainstream in every single aspect of life. The younger generation all engage with these technologies, and this is the way that they actually visualize the world moving forward. They don't work on 2D, they work on 3D. So we really have to adapt to the changing world. But now, what do we need to invest in? There's so many hundreds of digital technologies out there, and we're in this current digital revolution. We need to get the most out of what we invest in. And what we definitely want to do with everything we invest in is we want to see advantages with the digital. That's why we invest in digital. So what does this mean? It means that we want improved efficiency as far as time and costs go. We want improved outcomes. We want higher accuracy, in other words. And the most important thing is we want to improve the patient experience. I'm going to leave you now with Adam.
Sorry, I'm coughing there. So the learning objective is everything that Chris has given you about the history of how things have evolved. Now we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about. So the learning objectives. We're going to go over, obviously, the introduction of the digital workflow, which Chris has done, and the evolution of it. We're going to talk a little bit about patient considerations and consider the workflow that we have in digital dentistry. The main thing with all of this is digital technologies really are just tools. They aren't here to replace things, so they're not there to, you know, change the way you do dentistry. All they're there for is to make your dentistry better by improving accuracy and improving efficiency. What they shouldn't be is to be a way for you to have to feel like you are replacing what you're doing with anything. And really, it's got to the point where you can introduce digital dentistry with any part of dentistry now. Chris, can I just ask, have you got your microphone on still?
Yeah, sorry, let me switch that off.
Sorry, I was just repeating. Yeah, that's, I think the sound, has that come back a bit again now for me? Can you hear me now properly? Yeah, good. So before I go any further, let's just ask you all to see what you're all doing. If you all click on and just choose what technology you are currently doing. Do you have an intraoral scanner? Do you have a milling machine? Do you have a CT scanner? So a few of you got things there, that's good. Okay, so let's go back to this. What I'm going to do before we move on as well, obviously for those guys who need to register, we're going to turn the stream off of Facebook now before we carry on. And for those watching on Facebook, if you follow the link, you can register online. Okay, cheers guys. And that's turning off. Okay, so with all of digital dentistry, the thing is, I think dentistry is probably different with the introduction of digital dentistry in pretty much every part of the world that I've been to. Some places are far more advanced and more integrated. Some places in the world are obviously more behind. But in the UK, it's kind of a big mix, really. I think it's probably held back by the fact that, and in no detriment do I say this, or, you know, derogatory way to the NHS, but I think the fact that the NHS side of dentistry in England is kind of limited the financial scope of a lot of practice principals to want to invest in expensive technologies. So the nice thing we're seeing now is that's probably changing because they're understanding that they can use it for a lot of different things, and they can use it with things like a CEREC machine or a milling machine that Quintus is going to talk to you about later, to actually improve the production capability of the practice and the efficiency of using it with UDAs. But like anything in any part of the world, whether you're private or if you have a health system, all it's there for is to just improve your dentistry. So how does it do that? Well, the workflow is exactly the same as you would have for normal dentistry. You can't see the pictures there, by the way, that are moving, unfortunately, because it's a static image. It won't show you the videos, unfortunately, online. But the workflow you can see here, we have the consultation and consent, exactly the same as we would do on paper, but we can involve things like digital photography, videos, showing people images of what things we're going to do with them, what their tooth may look like if they're having a veneer, that sort of thing. The second stage, instead of a standard impression, might be an intraoral scanner. CAD design, you know, we can do before or even after. It depends on the process you're doing, but we can use it to create a mock-up of a smile design, a crown or tooth for a temporary before we even touch the teeth surface. So we can create things now before we've even been destructive to the tooth surface to really help with the consent process overall. And we can create the whole process in-house with CAD/CAM, with staining and glazing and doing it yourself, or you can just take your scan and send it to you know, a lab who's digitized, and they can do all that work for you. And different ways of doing it, different people have different preferences, nobody's wrong. It's just how it fits for you in your workflow. And everybody will have their own preference, and that's okay. And that's one of the beautiful things with digital dentistry, is that there is something that fits with everybody's way of doing things. So we should embrace that. And there are some amazing lab technicians. And one of the things I will say is that, you know, from the whole of the thing we've done with the IDDA, the lab technician side of things, I think, you know, looking at the digital side now, I'd like to think that dentists are closer to lab technicians than they ever have been, just simply because they can communicate them just the same as the patient. You can communicate with them instantly and show them things which, you know, used to take time. So it explains things between people easier, whether that be a patient or a lab technician. So everybody's on the same playing field, and it means that you have less confusion where things can go wrong, and that applies to both the patient, where they can, you know, end up in a problem that they blame the dentist for because they weren't really understanding the process of how things were going to go. They didn't understand that they were going to have their teeth trimmed, that sort of thing. So, you know, for consent side, but also for a communication side with the lab, I think it's incredibly important, the digital side of dentistry that we have now. So consultation consent, that moves us on to, and the reason why it's great is because, you know, we're creating experiences for the patient with, you know, producing things on screen, whether that be a generic image, a video, or even showing them their own mouth in 3D, or showing them a CT scan. You know, the patient will understand things better if they see things. You know, picture always paints 1,000 words, but if the patient can see why they need a bone graft, or they understand that a tooth does need to be trimmed, and potentially even through, you know, digital technologies, see how much tooth that there's going to need to be trimmed if they have a tooth that is going to be stuck out a little bit. They might choose then to go down the road of orthodontics to straighten the teeth, or, you know, consent to having that tooth trimmed a little bit more. So in my eyes, I think if you follow the fully digital road, I think you find that you probably have a better relationship with the patients as well, so they understand, and hopefully would have less problems later on because of that. So, or legally speaking, obviously. So that moves us on to how we do that. How do we capture that information? And for that, I'm going to leave you with Patrick.
Can we all hear that? Okay, thank you. Yes, so we live in certainly an exciting time now. Like Chris said earlier on here, we are truly in the fourth industrial revolution. Digital impressions is the way of actually capturing the data that we need. There are so many ways of doing this, and there's so many advantages. And the exciting thing now is that all the scanners that are on the market now are actually providing an excellent result, but they are all good for different things, and we all have a system that we prefer. There are a lot of benefits in doing digital dentistry, as we know, but a big one is that it's not just about accuracy, but it's also about comfort, and it's about time. And I think when all this has gone back to more of a normal situation, we are going to be working very hard really to catch up with these 3-4 months that we have lost. So time is becoming more and more of an issue. There are now a number of scanners on the market, and I think between the four of us, we probably have most of them really, which sounds a little bit cocky, but it's just because we like to try all these different ones. We all started off using Omnicams years ago when they first came out, and some of us have had scanners long before that as well. And the Omnicam is a great little machine really, and in the latest version now with the new software, the 5 software, it's really making a difference, and it's still a machine that's worth thinking about. But of course now we've had the Prime Scan. Really love that machine now. It's taken scanning to a completely different level, and especially if you have the full workflow like we do with the Prime Mill as well. It's really the full chairside workflow, and if you like doing your scans yourself and you like doing your planning yourself and also your crown and bridge work yourself, like we do now with, for instance, same-day smile makeovers, then it really makes a big difference. Another nice little machine is the Castoreum one. This is one that I've been using for a long while as well. The one in the picture here is the 3600 version, but now, of course, the 3700 is also out. And with that, it's also come out with a new software, the ScanFlow, which gives us a lot of advantages over the old version. We can also pick up colors very nicely with this, which is a new version with the 3700. Another nice feature that I personally like a lot is the author previews that you can use. So if you're using other aligners than, say, Invisalign, you can also plan your orthodontics very nicely, really. And that's why I don't think it's a problem that it's not accepted by Invisalign. Most scanners on the market now aren't accepted by Invisalign. So if you are very strict with using Invisalign, then it limits your choice a little bit, really. But it's still a great scanner, and I use it for almost all my ortho scans, to be honest. Another nice scanner is the ThreeShape now from Trios 4. It's the latest version in the ThreeShape family. It's a great little scanner as well, nice and quick. I know Adam's using the Trios 4 quite a lot, aren't you? And this is really proving to be a very popular scanner as well. If you are into your orthodontics, the one to consider is the EyeTira. The scan is quite easy with it, and a lot of orthodontists are also delegating their scans to other staff like nurses, and they seem to like this scanner as well. Lab technicians also like it because it's a nice clear picture. Personally, it's not my favorite because of size, really. You need to have quite a lot of room in your surgery to be able to fit that in nicely. But it's great for ortho, and it's also a really nice restorative scanner. And I think it's important to remember that, because a lot of people just think of it as the Invisalign scanner simply because they own it. But it does work really well as well. We have a few other scanners on the market. This is the Planmeca, the Emerald. This is one that Chris has been using quite a lot as well. It's quite similar in many ways to Castoreum, and size-wise it works in a similar way, and can also be nicely incorporated into your surgery setting, and you can just plug it in and out where you like. It's a nice little scanner as well. End of the day, it doesn't really matter what scanner you use, as long as you use a scanner that works for you. You could say the same thing about conventional impressions. Why should we move on to digital when we know a conventional impression works? But in reality, it's not exactly the same thing. We know there are a lot of problems with conventional impressions. You have to have the right material, you have to have the right size. It takes an awfully long time. And also, often you can get errors in the recording of the occlusion, and you might get problems with the impression not capturing all the detail because there might be a little drag or a little bit of air trapped somewhere. And of course, the problem is that if the tray flexes a little bit, you will never see that. Whereas with a scan, you can just zoom and that gives you all the information there, really. I think nowadays, there isn't really a need for using conventional impressions unless you need to have a functional impression. If I do dentures, I still take a functional impression using a flowable putty or a flowable material, but otherwise everything can be scanned now. As long as we remember that you have to be able to see into the area, you only scan what you can actually see because it's an optical registration. I think moving on from that takes us on to the X-ray scan. The CBCTs are also a digital scan nowadays. And the elegant thing with this is that we can also incorporate this into our planning software. So we have the digital scan and we have the scan of the hard and the soft tissues, and these can all be combined in one model, and sometimes that can be done in the same software as well, which makes it all a lot tidier, especially if you're doing things like guided surgery and smile design and planning of a bigger case. That moves us on to CAD design, and I believe that's Quintus, isn't it?
Okay, so for CAD design, what we normally do is after you have done your scan, the computer will then generate a 3D model for you, and then you can utilize that 3D model to do your design. For the purposes of this lecture, we're just going to keep it very simple to like a single tooth design. But basically what you have is, instead of a cast model, you've got a three-dimensional virtual model. So your CAD software, whichever one it is, if you work with CEREC, it will be your CEREC software, or InLab. There's the ThreeShape software, and then the other big one is ExoCAD. It doesn't matter which one you use, as long as you then get a good, nice design that you are comfortable with. Once you've got your design done, you send it to your milling unit. So once again, lots of different milling units on the market, and we can't really go into too much detail of that, but most in surgery systems will be a 4-axis milling unit. The bigger, more advanced milling units that labs use are called 5-axis. But yeah, lots of technical differences between them. The main difference is that, for example, the 5-axis milling units will be able to get more into undercuts and things like that. It doesn't really matter what you use, as long as you have a mill, and you can then produce a restoration in surgery. So once your restoration is milled, you then have to finish it. You have a little sprue that the machine leaves on the side of your restoration, depending on where you choose that sprue to be. You've got to then cut that off, and depending on what material you use, you can then either just polish it, or you can stain and glaze it. Say, for example, if you look at this case on the photo here, it's a case that we've done in Emacs, all stained and glazed and done on the same day. So that was a 10-unit case. You can do the really advanced stuff, but you can also do very basic stuff. This is a single unit crown that was done also in one visit with Emacs. And you can see there that it's fairly basic and fairly easy to do something about that. And, you know, these cases are sometimes very difficult to match your a single central incisor to another one. But if you get your designs right, and with the software, you can mirror and copy the tooth next to it, for example. Once you've got your design right, you've got to just make sure you've got the right color. And then you can see you can get a very, very accurate, very nice result on there. This is a case that Adam has done. And what I love about this case is that if you look at that, a little bit of staining and cracking and things like that, that is mimicked on the tooth there. So once this patient's lip line is in place, you will never know that there's a crown on that tooth. And this is what the beauty of this software is you can literally manipulate anything to make it look like the tooth that is missing, or you can replicate anatomy, all kinds of things like that. But for single units and basic use, it's very, very easy, very straightforward, and you can easily get really, really good results with it. So from there, we go to a learning curve, and this, I believe, is Chris's baby to talk about.
think this is Adam's actually. Adam? Anyway, I think I'll carry on with it anyway. I think the main thing is that one needs to realize when you invest in digital technologies, there's inevitably going to be a learning curve. The reason why is because it is also a dynamic process. You know, it's not you buy the product and you sit with it for the next 10 years. The product evolves, the software evolves. The classic example being the Omnicam. You know, we bought the first Omnicam around 2013, 14, and it's still the exact same hardware. But what you will see is that with the software upgrades, it's become a better and better scanner. And it's not because anything's changed, it's just the way the algorithms work out problems that improves everything. But despite that, you as a clinician have to be comfortable with using the equipment. And the best thing to do, which is what I did, I bought my first CEREC back in 2004. It was a CEREC Red Cam. But I didn't really jump into the anterior restorations. What I did is I started off with the posterior restorations, simple crown, and then starting to design inlays, onlays, or whatever the case may be, the less obvious restorations that wouldn't have made a huge difference. And then as my confidence grew, I then moved on to doing 2 or 3 restorations and finally tackling anterior aesthetics. And then from there going on to doing the full arch and doing the full smile designs. So it is a process, and it's a dynamic process. It's something that you evolve with, you move with, and you actually feel confident with at every stage that you're going. And the important thing with digital dentistry is to really invest the time and invest the effort in it, because with time you're going to gain experience, and with time and experience you're going to gain excellence. This is what we're actually all striving for. What about return on investment? So am I going to see a return on it? So when I first started using CAD dentistry back in 2004, it was a much more difficult procedure to use. I mean, the functions that we had were a lot more intricate, and they weren't as streamlined as what they are today. There's been some major changes on the software over the years as we've gone along, as well as the hardware. I think the main winning, I would call it a winning goal really for CAD dentistry, is the buccal bite scan. Previously, we had to scan reflective material on the bite. It was called an antagonist function, and that would then superimpose an opposite image to give us the occlusion on the opposing tooth, which was really difficult to use. But the buccal bite scan is really a great savior, because the biggest problem we have, of course, is the free end saddle, where you're struggling to find the bite or to get the articulation right from an impression. Whereas the buccal bite scan will give it to you fairly accurately. But as far as return of investment goes, you're certainly going to see the benefit from it. You might not see a huge return of investment initially, but for most of us who have invested in these technologies and used them, initially you might be thinking, why did I buy it? I'm struggling to do the first simple tooth or whatever. But as your skills develop, you'll find that it far outweighs the option of having impression materials using laboratories. And it's not to say you won't be using laboratories, but many cases really belong in the surgery. The single tooth belongs in the surgery. The digital planning belongs in the surgery. The implant workflow belongs in the surgery. Of course, I'm talking about the smaller sections, single implants, 2-3 implants. But the main thing is that you will see a huge saving and a return of your investment just by utilizing whatever the equipment can do for you to provide you with a solution. Firstly, as I said, it's got to be more efficient in saving you costs, but also saving you time. And the greatest winner for me is not just the return on investment, it's really the engagement from the patients. The patients absolutely love the technology. They engage with you. They say, wow, they see their teeth on the screen. And I think that's a big winner. For me, if my patient leaves happier and the experience for my patient is better, it's worth having that investment for me. So even if we take the worst case scenario and you don't get your return of investment in it, it's an investment you make for the happiness of your patient, and inevitably that ends up in the happiness for yourself. So let's look at an example here. Adam's put one up here, a return of investment. If you purchase a car that's 50, 60, 70K plus, you justify it as pleasure and as an investment. Now, most new purchases, hello?
Sorry, Chris, I was going to go on this. Do you want to say it?
Yeah, no, carry on. Thanks, Adam. Thank you.
It was just because I know you're reading it. But basically, the point of this slide was really just to say that a lot of people think about investments in a totally wrong way and based on pleasure. And I'm obviously, I'm a car fan as well. I like my cars, but the reality is that cars lose you a lot of money. Unless they're electric now and they can be classed as an expense, they're not really, they have no value. They just lose money. They depreciate. Whereas, whilst, something like a stereo machine may cost, a similar amount, the fact is that you will earn money with them. So they will increase your total profit. And also they will add to the value of your practice in a lot of ways, which you have no idea about when you first start using it. So, they will add to the goodwill by, people's enjoyment factor, the way that they, the reputation of the practice through having the digital technologies and producing things same day. It's not all about, a lot of people used to say, oh, it's just to save lab fees. And if you do things yourself, don't get me wrong. I mean, you can save your money on the lab fees. That is the main way that you can recoup investment cost. There's also the cost of the impression materials. I'll give you a good example of that. Is years ago, one of my associates, Adnan, lovely guy, but hard to get into using the digital scanner, and we worked out he was the only one that was using the impression materials, and it ranged on a monthly basis, but it ranged from between, I think it was something like £240 to £600, £700 a month that I was spending just on disposable materials, impression trays, fix, alginates, silicons, all the tray related equipment, and all of that added up, and it was basically the cost of another scanner. So the way I looked at it was, even if it cost me slightly more, that I was spending that amount of money anyway, I might as well spend it on something that will increase the value of my practice rather than it just being an expense. So the reason why I've got a picture of a car there is just that it's to try and change your mindscape on looking at these expensive bits of equipment, and they are expensive. There's not one of the good ones that cost you below 10-20 grand. So they are expensive, but at the end of the day, if you will bring in more patients through it, if you enjoy your dentistry more, if your patients enjoy your dentistry more, if it'll save you bacon in some of those weird situations where something breaks and you've got that backup of that crown that you can mill out again or something like that, then they're invaluable. So, really that's the point of that side, is to try and change the way that you think about it. And to follow that up, I'm going to leave you with Quintus, because Quintus, to give you a background before he says, is probably him, and we all have different ways that we run our practices, and we all have different features. But I think Quintus is probably what got a unique perspective on the integration of digital technologies with a large NHS practice with a few surgeries. So he can tell you exactly how that's helped us with the stereo machines that he's got there. So I will shut up now and leave you with Quintus.
Thanks, Adam. So the return on investment for me is not really so much about the monetary side of things. It's how you use what you've bought. For the first CEREC Omnicam we bought in 2013, I really was worried about the fact that if I don't use it, will we still be able to afford it? And we're going to spend a lot of money on buying this equipment, and is it going to work for us? And is it not? And that's the kind of questions you have to sort of answer for yourself. I looked at my own personal lab bills at that stage, and I was mostly NHS. I was spending between £2,000 and £3,000 a month just on crown and bridge work on lab fees. So I looked at the leasing cost of the machines and things like that, and I decided, okay, if I'm the only one in the practice that's going to use this, then I will still be able to afford it and pay for it if I just make sure that I use it for what I was doing on my own. In the end, we basically made it very attractive for all of the associates to use, and it's just basically taken off in the practice. So what we've done in the past 7 years, we've done most probably the best part of 25,000 restorations with the system. We look after it well. You've got to maintain it well. But the main thing is, and this is what I always say to everybody that has this question, is if you use it, it will pay for itself. And if you use it properly, you will be able to generate much more income than what you thought you would be able to. And secondly, you will be able to do dentistry that you actually enjoy much more. It's completely changed the way that I work in the practice. It has allowed me to work with great clinicians like Chris. We do lots of cases completely digitally, but very sort of intricate, difficult cases together. And we managed to do the planning beforehand. So if there's implants and things like that involved, Chris does all the surgery. You can easily, once you've done scans and photos and things like that, you can measure gum heights, things like that, and it just makes your whole treatment planning much more efficient, and the end results for the patient much better. So your treatment uptake is better, your quality of dentistry improves, because suddenly when you scan in a crown that you've prepped and you look at it under 40 times magnification, you realize how crappy your preps are. So it all forces you to look at the finer details, and it makes your dentistry just so much more predictable, so much more accurate, and it's just much better job satisfaction in the end. No matter what the money does, in the end, if you focus on these things, the money will look after itself. So, support. Adam, who's talking about this one? I can't remember.
I think that was me, actually. I think support is a big part of what we do. When you start doing any new technique or any new procedure, it's obviously important that you know what you're doing, but after a little while you will come across parts that you may not have thought about or may not have planned that much, or something might happen. So it's vitally important that you have a good network of friends and peers around you that you can turn to, but it's also important that we have the industry behind us, and we're very fortunate, at least in the UK, that we have a fantastic network of good dealers that can now come back to us and help and follow up, and also likewise that we can get training and further education, and that we can do things like we're doing now, where we can get together and look at what new ways we can try and explore for using the best new technology and for improving the actual outcomes and the treatments and the whole experience, not just for you as a clinician, but end of the day, it's all for your patient's benefit. It's just important that we have good people that we work with. Also for your practice, similar to Quintus, I also run a very big practice and also have a lab, which really makes the full chairside workflow the most important thing for me. Return on investment is obviously a huge thing for any practice owner, and especially at times like this when we have to really think about what we're spending money on. We have to remember that the money we put in, we should be able to get back out in the end, and at the same time enjoy what we're doing and improve the dentistry that we're doing. And I think digital dentistry has completely changed the way we work, certainly changed the way I work. And also by having a lab in-house, it means we can see more patients. We can have a much better experience for the patient. They have their preparations in the morning. I can do something else. And then we have the lab work back in the afternoon. So for standard cases, the technicians will do all this for me. And if it's something where I want to be involved, you know, I can just go down the lab and work a little bit on that as well. And that means you can have the best possible combinations and the best possible outcomes. And in the end, it reduces the surgical time, but you might actually get a much better value out of your chairside restorations as well. And also, of course, it's about the accuracy. By having the best scanners and the best planning, you get the best outcome, and that gives you the happier patients and less stress. And, you know, times like these, we could do with less and less stress, I think. So that's just sums it up nicely for me, really. So Adam, if you want to do your conclusion, maybe.
Again?
In short.
Yep. Everybody hear and see me?
Yeah.
Hello. So that's a whistle-stop tour. We're going to cover a load of stuff over the next few weeks. So we've got a load of lectures which we haven't put online yet. So, you know, the ones we have put online, we've got tomorrow, I'm going to be doing Mesh Mixer. I'm going to be doing a screen share, so I'll be able to answer questions you have as I'm doing it. So if you want to follow along, load up Mesh Mixer in advance and get it downloaded onto your laptop. And yeah, more announcements. We're going to be announcing a lot more of the lectures tomorrow. They'll be updated on the website. So if you go to 3dprintcovid19.com and go to register to the events, then there'll be a big long list of events that you can see, and all of these are going to be updated more and more. So the tomorrow we've got me, as I say, intro to Mesh Mixer. Then we've got on Wednesday Quintus. I'm at 2 o'clock tomorrow. Sorry, Quintus. This is GMT time. Quintus is 7:30 on Wednesday, doing intro to smile design. 2 o'clock on the Thursday, Patrick doing intro to photography. Same day at 7:30, Chris is going to be doing an intro to digital implantology. And we've also got over the days coming after that, ones we've got already up there, Martin Atariani, failed to plan to fail with implants. Sandy Limerick, getting into digital dentistry there. Mark Bishara, mastering the emergence profile. That sounds like a cool one. I'm going to be watching. And Hossam, can I tell you, if you want to watch any of them, I love Hossam's lecture because he has all the videos of, I don't know if it'll work on it, hopefully it'll screen share, but he has videos of the occlusion in digital as it moves and that sort of thing. Very, very cool lecture. So, you know, all of those things. And we've got all the others. So we've got all these guys. So, you know, we've got Todd and August from America, you know, Lino with Seric as well, the incredible Jan Hajto, Federica, Dave Claridge, Amit Patel. You know, we've got Eric Kukukan and Milos and Amir, Ralph with DSD, Tom Seeley, which is going to be talking about something to do with smile design as well. Ray Rofi from the US, he's going to be going over Blue Sky Bio stuff. Agnes, there's Hossam, you know, Marcus, Dan Schaefer, August, we said, Carl, Mark, and Niraj from India. People from all over the world with this. Doug Watt from UK, Hugo as well, Adrian and Arnaud, Powell, and Martin and Alesh. So incredible speakers. So, you know, really, if you were going to listen to some of these, some of them you'd have to be going to something like a master's event and spending the best part of £1,000 to listen to them. So I would absolutely recommend tuning into each one of them. Keep an eye on the list. And like I said, most importantly, they're all doing this for free to try and get donations. So if you haven't donated yet, even if it's a few quid, just anything makes a difference. I also want to say thank you very much to those who have donated so far. And the update now, I can tell you, since we started, is wow, £350 already. So I mean that will pay for the cost of a few of these, a few hundred masks. There's going to be some really happy frontline staff. We're not charging frontline staff as well. We're sending these out to them. It's all 100% going towards all the production and sending out to these guys. So any donation is much appreciated. It's, like I said, full kosher thing. So we're trying to do you guys as dentists and technicians proud, and hopefully change the way that people think about dentistry with this. So anything helps. But otherwise, thanks for listening. Hopefully the sound, everything worked out well, and you enjoyed the lecture. Keep an eye on the lecture list, like I said, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay. See you later.
Thank you very much. See you later.
Yeah, thanks everyone. We'll see all of you in the next 40 days.
Absolutely. If there's any questions anyone has, please just post them at the bottom there. We can answer them for you. But thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, Raju. So do you mean when will I start tomorrow? Sorry. I'll put the link on below where all the lectures are going to be listed. So, where are we? So on there, if you click on the button which says register for the webinars, then that will take you through to a list of all the lectures. And you should see on there, there is the date and time of which those lectures are. And other than these first 5 by us four, there'll be the name of the person, the title of the lecture there as well. So you'll be able to register in there. So all of those should be on that list, and we'll see you all then. Like I said, I'm in tomorrow at 2 p.m. GMT. So if you are different parts of the world, what that registration will also do, it'll be convert that time to your local time as well. Does that answer your question there, Raju? My pleasure. Thanks very much for listening, guys. We appreciate the help. Keeps us busy. We're sitting here doing nothing other than if we can chat to you guys, do some good, use what we do to try and do some good in the world, and you guys are helping out, so it's much appreciated. Okay, guys, I'm going to shut this down then, and we'll see you tomorrow. So thanks very much. Thanks for the kind word. And we'll see you then. Okay. Cheers, guys.